Hello, I'm Jeff Field, Trust Estate Tax Attorney, and I want to welcome you to my family's cabin. And today I want to talk to you and tell you how you can pass on your family's homestead, your family's vacation home, to your children or your grandchildren, the next generation. And I have a personal experience with this. About 18, 19 years ago, my grandfather passed away. And about a month before he passed away, they had to sell the family homestead. And it was this beautiful, almost 100-year-old house, that two-story house that my grandfather had helped build when he was younger. And it was a family farm, raised peaches and other fruits and vegetables on it. And it was a great place that I was able to visit when I was younger and remember my grandmother and grandfather just being really active on the farm. And it had to be sold because they didn't take advantage of what I'm going to share with you today. And my mom was raised in this house virtually her entire life. Didn't have any indoor plumbing when she was living there. So it really has a lot of sentimental value. It's my family heritage. And so now when we go back to Virginia, and we did a few years ago, had a family reunion, we got to stand on the front lawn and take a Miller family picture, but we couldn't go inside. We didn't own the place. It was gone. It's no longer part of my family's possessions and heritage. It's been sold. And I want to talk to you about how to avoid that with your family's vacation home or second piece of property. In particular, the reason I'm standing here is that this holds great sentimental value for me. One of the reasons for building this with my family is because of what happened to my grandfather's place. My family, my wife and my teenage children at the time, we stacked the logs, we put the roof on, we caulked, stained, we did the plumbing and the electrical, we hung the sheetrock and painted inside and out. And so this was a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, but it was a great adventure. We've had some great Christmases here. We've had some epic fishing trips up here with some of the men in my family. And recently my son was married on the property and with his beautiful bride, and we had a great celebration. So part of my passion for you and for me is that I want to help other people pass on that heritage, that vacation home, that family homestead to their children and their grandchildren. One of the ways that you can do that is just a simple sale. You can just sell it outright to your children and grandchildren. The one challenge with that is that if it's an older property that's appreciated, it'd be subject to the capital gains tax. And given the current economic environment, the current political environment, the wealthy needing to pay their fair share, and the Buffett tax, it's entirely possible that capital gains will go up. Now, I'm sure you don't consider yourself to be wealthy just because you own a second home. But unfortunately, you may be subject to a higher capital gains tax rate if you decide to sell it outright. Another avenue that you can take is an intentionally defective trust. It's a little more complex, but it's intentionally defective for income tax purposes. The income taxes are passed on to the creator of the trust and not passed on to the beneficiaries. The challenge with that is it's not for the faint of heart. So I advise you, if you're going to consider that, to really talk to a qualified trust estate tax attorney for that particular purpose. Another way to do it is just a simple bequest. You can just give it to your children. The challenge with a simple bequest, though, is what if the roof needs a major repair or the plumbing needs to be totally replaced? So the first major expense, your children and the grandchildren are going, wow, great, Mom and Dad, for giving us this place, but this is costing us a lot of money. And there's ways to avoid that and to work around that, and we'll speak to that in a minute. So simple bequest is one way. If you haven't, I would strongly encourage you, regardless of any of the other options, that you put it in a revocable trust. You want to avoid the probate and the court process regardless of whether it's passed on to your children and grandchildren or not. So put it in a trust at the very least. It's more formalized, but a lot of flexibility on use and how it's paid for and how the upkeep is taken care of. You can put that in the trust document. So that's a great way to pass it on to the next generation, and it's a great way to avoid the probate process. So at the very least, do that. The other thing you could consider is putting it into an LLC or a partnership. The great advantage of an LLC or partnership, it's more formal, can establish rules, regulations, uses, who's responsible for what. It's a great asset protection vehicle. Somebody walking down the stairs slips and falls, family friend here on the property, and they injure themselves, and the liability stops at the LLC. It doesn't go beyond the actual property, the vacation home, family homestead. So then your children or grandchildren's residences, investments, those sort of things are not subject to liability because of an accident that takes place on the family homestead. Another vehicle is a qualified personal residence trust. Has great tax benefits. The way that works is that you, the owners, you gift it to this qualified personal residence trust, and in so doing, you calculate the value of the property, but you retain an interest. You have a retained interest in it and a right to use the property for a set term. And that set term has a value, and you deduct that from the property value, and it helps from an estate tax standpoint. The one challenge is you got to make sure that the term is reasonable and that you outlive the term. If you don't outlive the term of use, then the whole thing's going to be pulled back into your estate, and the estate tax benefits are going to be thwarted and of no effect. So just make sure that you do some proper calculations and get the proper advice to set up a qualified personal residence trust for that. But before you go to any of those, I'd really strongly encourage you to sit down with your family and ask them, is this something that you want to hang on to? Is this something that is close to your heart as it is to our heart? I know that if my aunts and uncles had come to me and said, hey, we need to sell the Miller family farm, I would have gone, okay, let me figure out a way that I can buy it. Let me figure out a way that we can come up with a way to keep it in the family. And that didn't happen, but you need to ask your family are they interested in it? Are they interested in maintaining it and taking care of it? And one of the things that you can do, though, is you could set up an endowment that would handle some of those large expenses, maintenance expenses that may come in the future to handle insurance and property taxes and home repairs. So there is a way to provide for your family, set up an endowment to take care of some of those expenses, but you need to have that conversation. Families change, families move away, the dynamics change, and you don't want to go to all the trouble of setting up a way to transfer it to your children or grandchildren and then discover that they're really not interested in maintaining it. I know for me and my family, definitely they want to maintain it, definitely they want to keep it in the family. It means a lot to us, and we've taken advantages of these particular options to be able to do that. There's more information on my website, more detail, the caveats, how to go about making these types of plans for your second home, your vacation home, your family homestead. I'd encourage you to visit my website, fieldlawpc.com, and I thank you for listening.